Sharon was really angry, especially with me, her husband. I am Frank Miller. How did I know she was upset? Simple. While driving back from a party organized by her friends, the Bandolins, she scooted as far away from me as possible in the car, and her silence was so deep it felt like it could curdle milk. Why was she so mad at me? Honestly, I believe she had a good reason. I completely ruined her night, and I feel terrible for embarrassing my wife of 10 years and the mother of our 3 children. I made such a stupid mistake. What did I do to embarrass her and ruin her night? I took the wrong key. You see, the Bandolins throw some pretty wild parties, and my wife suddenly wanted to join in on the action. Unfortunately, I wasn't interested. We had never been to one of their parties before, but my wife managed to get an invitation through a friend of a friend. My wife, whom I've been married to for a decade, forgot to mention that this party was different. She didn't tell me beforehand that at this party, all the wives were supposed to throw their house keys into a bowl, and then the husbands would blindly pick a key and spend the night with the corresponding wife in the master suite for a night of, well, not so innocent fun. When the party was ending, I suddenly realized what was about to happen and I panicked. I had never been so angry with Sharon before. I grabbed her arm and pulled her into the kitchen. Did you know this party was going to end like this? I asked her. She smiled at me. Yes. And you didn't think to tell me before we came? No, because I knew you wouldn't agree unless you had to. I definitely wouldn't agree, and I always have a choice. We're leaving. We can't leave now. It wouldn't be polite. You'd embarrass me. Besides, it's just for one night. It'll add some excitement to our marriage. I don't need that kind of excitement. Let's go. We need some excitement. I need it just for one night. I want to be more than just a wife and mother. It's only one night and it won't happen again. Besides, I've already put our key in the bowl, so we can't back out now. No way. It's not too late, I said firmly, grabbing her arm and pulling her back to the living room, where everyone was gathered around the bowl full of keys, ready to choose their partner for the night. Sharon tried to resist, but I let go of her and walked up to the bowl. I wasn't informed about this part of the party, I announced loudly. I'm not going to share my wife with any of you. I searched until I found her house key with the red plastic cover. I pulled it out and faced the surprised group. I wasn't informed about the rules beforehand. I don't believe in cheating and my wedding vows mean everything to me. Some people murmured and glared at me, but I didn't care. I looked at my wife, who was furious. Sharon, you have a choice to make right now. Come with me and forget this madness, or stay and never come home again. I'm leaving. All eyes turned to my wife, who was now red with embarrassment. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke. I'm sorry for my husband's behavior. I would love to stay, but given the circumstances, I'd better go. With anger and reluctance, she followed me to the car. You're selfish, she shouted. How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never be invited again. Embarrass you, Char? How about how you embarrassed me by not telling me your plan to be with someone else tonight? Well, you were going to be with another wife, so we both would have had fun. I don't want to be with another woman, Sharon. That's something I reserve for you. It's unsettling to hear that after 10 years of marriage, you want to be with someone else. It would have been just one time, Frank. Out of all the nights we've spent together, it's only one night with someone else. After being a good wife for 10 years, isn't it reasonable? Actually, Sharon, it's not. I can't believe what I'm hearing, but this obviously means a lot to you, doesn't it? Yes, Frank, it does. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. It's my chance to be more than just a wife and mother, to have an adventure, to be admired, and to have fun with another man for a few hours. You mean your night with someone other than your husband? Well, that's a bit harsh, but yes, that's a big part of it, probably the biggest. I slammed on the brakes, made a U-turn in the street, and headed back to the Bandolin's house. Sharon screamed as I turned around. What are you doing, Frank? If spending a night with another man means that much to you, Sharon, then go ahead, do it. I pulled up in front of the house. It looked like all the other cars were still there. It seems you're not too late to join in. Go ahead and enjoy your night with some random guy. I hope he satisfies you in ways I can't. Frank, it's just something new, an adventure. You're perfect for me, but you know I can't go in alone. We both have to participate, each with a new partner. I already told you I'm not going to be part of this, Char. I've never cheated on you and I won't start now, not until we're no longer married. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. It's time to decide, Sharon. So if you're going to do it, go with your unfaithful friends. I'm sure they'll gladly welcome a beautiful woman like you into their little scheme, even without her husband. Sharon reached for the door handle and then hesitated. I could see she was thinking hard. Her tone softened. Will you pick me up in the morning, Frank? You know where I'll end up. I'll call and let you know. It would mean a lot to me. Not a chance, but I'm sure your new partner will give you a ride after spending the night with you. You're making this sound so bad, Frank. He won't be my lover, just someone I'll be close to for one night. I love you, Frank. You're the only man for me. Do you really believe that? There's no way you can love me and do what you're planning. Let me get this straight. You just want someone new to be intimate with, right? You want some new guy to touch you? That's harsh, Frank. You know I'm on birth control, so I won't get pregnant. It's just one night with someone new. It'll be exciting. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be with someone new? Just a fresh experience with different feelings, something exciting. Trust me, it will spark things between us. Enjoy your time with someone new, Sharon. I hope you realize what you're doing. It's just one night, Frank. It's not too much to ask. Even one moment is too much. We have the rest of our lives together. We'll have nothing together if you go through with this. You're overreacting, Frank. Don't let this ruin the night for me. I just want some time with someone new, and you're not going to stop me. I'm going to do this and you need to accept it, understand? Tomorrow morning I'll be back and I'll make you forget all about this. Tomorrow you'll be in the past. I won't want you anymore after you've let another man have what I thought was mine alone. Now you're being ridiculous. I belong to you and you'll still want me. I'll make sure of that. Sharon, listen to me. If you go back to that house, your night will cost you your marriage and your family. No, Frank, it won't happen. We are married and we will stay that way. We are meant to be together. I love you and I know you love me. We'll get through this, I promise. I'll fix it. You're breaking my heart. Sharon, stop being so dramatic. Think of it as if you're sending me on an adventure. It might be an adventure for you, but it's the end for us. Stop talking nonsense, Frank. You'll change your mind by morning and you know it. Do you really think I'll even look at you after you've spent the night with someone else? You'll want me, Frank, and much more than that. I'll make sure of it. God, I never realized how foolish you are. My words caught her by surprise, but she opened the car door and started getting out. See you tomorrow morning, Frank. I shook my head sadly as I sped away, leaving tire marks down half the block. I watched her in the rearview mirror as I raced down the street. She stood on the sidewalk, completely stunned, with her mouth open. She hadn't moved by the time I turned the corner and disappeared from her view. I hoped she would call me right away, admit she was wrong, and ask me to come back for her, but she didn't. She probably thought I would be mad for a couple of days, and then she could fix things by taking me to bed. Well, she was completely wrong. My father always said that if a woman was considering cheating, she had already crossed that line mentally. And if a married woman was seriously contemplating it, she had already broken her vows. It's fine to admire someone, but if she's planning on making it happen, she has already betrayed you. As much as it hurt, she had ended our marriage, and it was time to move on. The real tragedy was our 3 kids, Jocelyn, age 9, Rebecca, age 8, and Frank Jr., age 4. How could I imagine life without seeing them every day? But I couldn't let Karen's actions go without consequences. The kids were with my mom for the weekend, giving me time to decide my next steps. I drove aimlessly for a while, still hoping Sharon would call and ask me to pick her up, but it became clear that she had made her decision. Finally, I came up with a plan and headed back home. Just as I was pulling into the driveway, my phone rang. I hoped it was Sharon asking me to come get her, but the caller ID showed it wasn't her. I answered anyway. There was loud music and laughter in the background, and a man spoke. "Hey, Frank. It's Rick Wilson from the party. You left your wife behind and she gave me your number. She's really excited about tonight and wants you to join too. You're a lucky guy. Everyone here is eager to get her key. She keeps saying someone's going to have a memorable night. Come back and join us. There are some hot girls here looking to have fun with you. Go to hell, Rick Wilson, you manipulative jerk. And to hell with everyone at your party, including my unfaithful wife. I hope you all suffer miserable fates. I hung up and went inside. It took me less than 20 minutes to pack 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or two. I grabbed my toiletries and loaded everything into the car. I found our marriage license, tore it to pieces, and then smashed my wedding ring with a hammer. It took a few hits to crush it, but once I did, I placed the pieces on Karen's pillow. I locked the door and drove off into the night. I wanted to find a motel a few miles outside the city, but first I drove back past the Bandolin's house. Some cars had already left the party, and a few people were outside pairing off for the night. I didn't see Sharon, so I assumed she had already left with her new partner or was with Mr. Bandolin himself. The motel I found was in the next town over. It didn't look fancy, but it had parking in the back, which would keep my car out of sight if anyone came looking for me. After securing the car, I bought a 6-pack of Newcastle beer at the convenience store next door and decided to watch some TV. The first 2 beers calmed me down, and as I opened the third, my phone rang again. It was Sharon, but knowing she wasn't calling to ask for a ride home, I let it go to voicemail. Frank, you're being so dramatic about this. Rick Wilson told me what you said to him. I've told you countless times it's just one night. I'm just trying something new with a guy, and that doesn't make me a bad person. I promise you, even though I might be a little sore, I'll make it up to you when I get home tomorrow. Oh, and since you took our key out of the bowl, they gave me a new one. The guy who got it is named Glenn and he seems nice. He's married with kids just like us. Since you're back at our house, I went home with him. His wife and her partner for the night are here too, but they're in another part of the house, far enough that we won't hear each other when things heat up. You know how loud I can get when we're together, she laughed. Look, I know you're upset, but I promise I won't let him do anything we haven't done before. I told Glenn we should keep it simple, maybe just some regular stuff. He agreed, especially since it's my first time with someone else. He'll drop me off tomorrow, and I'll make sure everything is cleaned up before I come home. No second rounds for you, sweetheart. Sweet dreams, love. See you in the morning. Get ready to have some fun. I love you, Frank. I felt like I was going to be sick. I never realized I was married to such a foolish woman. Sure, Sharon had always been a little naive, but that was part of her charm. Now her lack of common sense was on full display, and it had cost her our marriage and maybe her children. There was no way she thought I would ever take her back after she let some guy have her and rubbed it in my face. The phone rang again. Hey, sweetheart. Glenn and I just got comfortable in bed, so I can't talk much. Shut up, Sharon. This might be the last time you ever hear from me. You don't realize what you've done, but you'll find out soon enough. Enjoy your time with Glenn, because the consequences will be worse than you can imagine. Understand this, Sharon. Once Glenn touches you, our marriage is over. Do you hear me? It's over. I never thought I'd say this, but I hate you more now than I ever loved you. I can't wait to be free of you. My lawyer will be in touch next week. I hung up. Less than 30 seconds later, she called again. I let it go to voicemail once more. Frank, she sounded like she was about to cry. Why are you acting like this? How could you say those things to me? I'm your wife. You can't just leave me over one night. Glenn and I just started and now you're ruining it for me. I don't know if I can enjoy being with him the way I wanted to now. We're not getting divorced. I'll be home tomorrow morning and we can talk about this. I would come home now, but I promised Glenn I'd stay with him tonight. Please understand, I have to do this. He got my key and I promised he could have me. He really wants to right now. Oh, yes, right now while I'm talking to you I have to go. Glenn is ready to, he's ready. I love you, Frank. I always will. Please don't say our marriage is over because of this. I can't help it. He's already here. Oh God, please. Oh yes, please try to understand. Then I heard her whisper, oh yes, Glenn, this is my night. I'll see you in the morning, darling. Once again I couldn't resist and I called her back. This time it rang several times before going to voicemail. It was clear Glenn was with my wife, so I left a message. From your last message, it's obvious that Glenn is already with you and you're enjoying it. You can spend the night with him, experiencing all the new sensations he's giving you. Sharon, you've broken my heart, and I will never forgive you. It's great that you could keep your promise to Glenn, the man you just met, but you couldn't keep your marriage vows to me, but one who has loved and been faithful to you for over 10 years. I don't even recognize you anymore. No, you won't see me in the morning and you may never see me again, but you'll receive divorce papers next week, and I'll be accusing you of adultery. Now that Glenn is doing what only I should have the right to do, you are officially unfaithful. You can cheat with any man you want from now on, but in case it matters to you, I am lost to you forever, and I will certainly keep that promise. Sharon didn't call me back. She gets so absorbed during intimate moments, disappearing into a world where nothing matters except her and the man she's with. They were completely focused on each other at that moment. I'm not sure if she got my last message, but it didn't matter. The damage was already done and our marriage was over. There was no way I would ever take her back after she disrespected and humiliated me like that, mocking our marriage. I finished the rest of the beer. Sharon had always been loud. She was with me and I'm sure it was the same with Glenn. Anyway, the beer helped and I finally fell asleep, tears still running down my face. I woke up about 4 hours later and reality hit me hard. My wife had taken another lover, and now I had to figure out how to protect my kids, get her out of my life, and make everyone at that party as miserable as possible. We live in Bowie, Mississippi, a beautiful town on the Gulf Coast. Since Mississippi allows divorce based on adultery, I could avoid paying alimony and maybe even get custody of my children. I needed a top-notch lawyer and I needed one fast. I showered and changed clothes. At 7:30, I called my mother to tell her what was going on. She was just as shocked as I was by Karen's actions. She had the kids for the weekend and assured me she wouldn't say anything to them. I told her I would pick them up once I had a plan. I assumed Sharon would likely get custody, at least for now. It's hard to admit, but she's been a good mother and wife until last night. After hanging up with my mother, I went to a nearby restaurant for breakfast. As I parked and headed toward the door, my phone rang. It was Sharon. I hesitated but decided not to answer, letting it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message, but instead called again repeatedly until she finally left one, sobbing. "Frank, answer the damn phone. Talk to me." "What do you mean? You might never see me again, and what's this about divorce papers? You can't leave me. Frank, we have 3 beautiful kids who need both of us. Why did you tear up our marriage license and crush your wedding ring? I gave you that ring on our wedding day, and you promised to wear it forever. It's a symbol of our eternal love. I knew you'd be a little upset with me, but I never thought you'd go this far. Frank, I love you deeply, but I really needed that special night with Glenn. It meant so much to me. It made me feel alive and young again. I had forgotten how exciting it is to laugh and scream at the same time. But as incredible as last night was, you're the only man for me, Frank. I know how to make it up to you and ease your hurt feelings. Please come home so I can show you how much I love you and make things right." She started crying again, and her words became hard to understand. "Frank, why can't you see that I just needed one night with someone new to feel desired and wanted again? It was amazing to know another man wanted me and found me beautiful enough to be with. Please, Frank, try to understand. It was just a moment, nothing more. Please talk to me. I love you. You and our kids mean everything to me." Her voice weakened. "It was just an act, Frank. Oh God, we were only intimate. That's all, Frank. We just did it." She continued sobbing until the message ended. I stood outside the restaurant completely stunned. Had Sharon been harboring these feelings throughout our marriage, and now in her mid-30s they suddenly surfaced? Sharon is still as beautiful as ever, 5 feet 5 inches, 130 pounds, with dark blonde hair that falls to her shoulders and bright blue eyes. She has a fantastic figure. Her breasts aren't too big or too small. Even though her hips are a bit wider after having 3 kids, she still turns heads wherever she goes. So what is this nonsense about needing to feel desired by another man? I always showed her how much I loved and desired her. I surprised her with flowers, took her on dates at least once a week, and told her every day how beautiful she was and how much I loved her. Until last night, our life in bed had been amazing, or so I thought. We made love at least 3 times a week, and I always made sure she was satisfied. What did I miss? I lost my appetite but went into the restaurant anyway. I found an empty table and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my breakfast, but drank at least 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so lost, empty, and devastated in my life. I had heard people say they wished they were dead, and now I understood what they meant. The only thing keeping me going was the thought of my kids. I had to live for them. I had to navigate this living nightmare that Sharon had created and build a future for them. That thought filled me with determination. I would persevere. I just needed to figure out how. Sharon called my phone about 20 times that day, but I always let it go to voicemail. She begged me to understand, but not once did she apologize for her actions. She never admitted she had made a mistake. Instead, she insisted she needed that night and that it was my responsibility to support her. They were intimate 3 times that night and once more in the morning. She even mentioned being worried that she hadn't paid her phone bill on time and that I might have heard the first time, right when Glenn was, as she put it, doing his job. She hoped I hadn't heard too much. I couldn't believe how deeply she could hurt me. It was hard to comprehend how she could be so foolish. However, on the positive side, I now had solid audio evidence of her infidelity to use against her in court, though I wasn't sure if it would be enough. The recordings were very convincing and left no room for doubt. I planned to find a good lawyer the next day and gather all the necessary information. I visited my kids at my mother's house. She told me that Sharon had already called, asking about the children and my whereabouts. My mom explained that I was upset about what had happened and didn't want to see her speak with Sharon. Apparently, Sharon started crying, saying she didn't understand. My mom suggested that maybe it would be better for the kids to stay with her for a few more days until things calmed down. The kids were happy to see me but wondered where their mother was. I told them she was busy with something important and that they'd be staying with Grandma for a little while longer. We played games and had dinner together before I hugged and kissed them goodbye and returned to my motel. The next day was going to be busy, but before I called it a night I had one more thing to do, a quick drive. As soon as I saw my house, the tears started flowing again. I cried for what was lost, knowing it was gone forever. I was surprised not to see any unfamiliar cars in the driveway, though there might have been one in the garage. Seeing only the kitchen light on downstairs made me think that Sharon was alone, at least for tonight. And then it hit me, I still had feelings for her. No, I wouldn't take her back after what she had done, but it hurt deeply to imagine her betraying me with another man. I tried to resist the temptation to check on her, but I gave in, parking a block away. I walked back and peed through the kitchen window. She was sitting at the table, a bottle of Grey Goose vodka empty beside her. Her hair was disheveled, mascara smeared down her face, and she wore a robe. She rested her head on the table, eyes closed. It was clear she had been crying, surrounded by crumpled tissues. For a moment I felt sorry for her, but then I remembered her betrayal and my sympathy faded. I wanted to lash out, but instead I walked back to my car and left. There was a small sense of satisfaction. Maybe she was starting to realize the seriousness of her actions. If she wanted pity, she could call her lover, Glenn. Monday arrived early and I had a busy schedule ahead. At the restaurant I had eggs, toast, and coffee, and this time I finished everything. Afterward, I called my mom and spoke to each of my kids, assuring them of my love and promising to see them soon. Then I contacted my executive assistant at work, informing her that I would be handling personal matters for the next few days. I told her she could call or message me if anything urgent came up. She noticed something was wrong, but I didn't elaborate, promising to explain later. I shared an apartment with 2 good friends, Douglas Pratt and Maxwell McCrae. We had formed a strong bond, and though we didn't see each other often, we had stayed in touch over the years. My specialty was in IT, Doug studied business administration and Max went into law. I called Doug first and asked if both of them could meet me for drinks around 5. I needed their advice on a serious matter, and Doug agreed to contact Max. We planned to meet at the Wash, a beachside bar. I arrived early. Shortly after 5, Max showed up, followed by Doug 10 minutes later. We greeted each other warmly and found a table on the patio, ordering drinks and toasting. What's going on, Frank? Doug asked. Your call sounded serious. Sharon cheated on me and made sure I knew about it, I confessed and proceeded to tell them the whole story. Wow, that's tough, Doug exclaimed. I can't even imagine her doing something like that, Max chimed in. Same here, I replied. But she did it without shame or remorse and still thinks I'm overreacting. Can you believe that? So, what's your plan? Max asked. I want a divorce and I want to teach Glenn, whoever he is, a lesson, along with the other idiots at that party. But more than anything, I want to fight for custody of my kids. Getting custody might not be easy, Max warned. Unless she's been a neglectful mother, if she's bringing random men home and having affairs while the kids are there, you might have a case. Otherwise, if she's generally been a good mother, she's likely to get custody, and you'll have to pay child support. I can handle that as long as I can spend time with them whenever I want, I responded. That's feasible, Max nodded. Courts generally prefer both parents to be involved in raising the children if both are fit parents. What about finances? Doug asked. Sharon stays home with the kids, and I probably make a good six-figure salary. What about my accounts, checking, savings, investments, 401k, IRA? I have all of that, and when you add it up, it's probably around $700,000 or $800,000, maybe a little more. The court will likely divide that equitably, giving Sharon the house and custody. But if you can prove she cheated, which it sounds like you have a strong case for, you might not have to pay alimony, Max explained. Do you know any good divorce lawyers? In fact, one of the partners at my firm is one of the top family law attorneys in Mississippi. His name is Matt Simmons. Want me to set up a meeting for you? Absolutely, the sooner the better. Meanwhile, Doug suggested, I'll see what I can do to protect some of your money. Send me all the details about every dollar you have, and I'll get to work on it. We raised our glasses again, had a couple more drinks, and then said our goodbyes. Suddenly, I felt better than I had since this whole ordeal began. As I drove back to my motel, my mind raced with all the tasks I had ahead of me. My phone rang, it was Sharon. After a brief hesitation, I pulled over to answer. What do you want, Sharon? I asked, cutting straight to the point. What do you think I want, Frank? I want my husband back home where he belongs. I could hear the tears in her voice. Well, unfortunately for you, your little fling with Glenn makes it impossible for me to come back home. I responded firmly. She burst into tears. Don't say that, Frank. Don't you dare. It was just one night away from you after 10 years, and that's not enough for a divorce. I disagree with you, Sharon. According to Mississippi law, having relations with someone other than your spouse is considered adultery. And Glenn definitely did that with you. Tears streamed from her eyes. Why are you being so cruel, Frank? I love you. All Glenn did was be intimate with me a few times. It was just a whim. Oh, my mistake, Sharon. I must have misunderstood that being intimate outside of marriage isn't adultery. How could I have gotten that wrong? Let it go, Sharon. It's done. I warned you countless times and begged you not to do it, but you did it anyway. Now you have to face the consequences, and soon you'll realize that your troubles are far from over. Goodbye, Sharon, and have a miserable life.